Our final story today comes from leaders across 4 institutions in the Milwaukee-Kenosha region. These leaders represent institutions in our first regional consortium of 2-year, 4-year institutions at EAB's Moonshot for Equity initiative, a first-of-its-kind public-private partnership aimed at eliminating equity gaps by the year 2030. These institutions have jointly committed to implementing 15 best practices proven to eliminate equity gaps such that underrepresented students of color and other historically underserved populations graduate at the same rate as white students. Now, I bring to you our ConnectED story focused on how leaders and institutions should come together on equity now.
There are, unfortunately, all too many equity gaps that are occurring in Milwaukee and across the region. We've seen that happen in cities across the country. Milwaukee happens to occupy a position as the most segregated community in the country.
I believe that since the shooting of Jacob Blake and the social unrest that occurred, there has been a national spotlight on Kenosha. And that national spotlight has put more focus on the inequities that we have in our community and many communities across the country.
We've been having this conversation for a long time. I've been raised here, so I know this has been an ongoing discussion, but I think the difference has been the urgency around action. And I think that action is like we need to see something different.
There were people in different administrative and operational roles who said, well, with students that have this income or with students who have this lack of academic preparation, we are never going to be able to be better. And that is an indictment that we had on ourselves. I am ashamed to say that that's something that I knew better. I knew that we had to overcome that. And we have spent the last 5 or 6 years directly addressing that type of mindset, that type of culture that is so antithetical to meeting the students where they are, to recognizing how we have to change our curriculum, how we have to change our mindset, and do a number of different things.
It's up to us now as leaders to make sure that we're employing the kinds of strategies that really are going to make a difference, and that they can see action, they can really see change, that our culture is changing, that we're being different, that we are looking at our systemic racism and doing something about it.
Often in higher education, we have the will, we have the team, we even have the best practices to be able to deploy. But the challenge for us oftentimes is how do we get some of these practices to scale? And then how do we fully integrate them into our campus culture?
Some of this work is going to require true systemic change. And although each of us in our own organization has to do some work, it's really going to be a partnership across organizations that's going to get that change done.
The concept of equity and reducing and eliminating equity gaps is front and center for us in so many different ways. So I'm really excited as we look at the future to have structure, to have assistance from EAB, to work with colleagues across the region, which we have been doing an awful lot already, to really put more structure, systems, and also accountability, as well as the visibility that comes when you go public with an initiative like this.
Our staffs are working together at the University of Wisconsin-Parkside, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Milwaukee Area Technical College, and Carthage College. And I'm convinced that this kind of process, this kind of collaboration, we're going to have ideas that we wouldn't have had if we had only been collaborating with institutions that were very similar to us in type. So that is part of the true power of this for me. We will have the best practices, and yet we know it's contextual. The ideas that will work on each campus do depend, in part, on how that campus is organized and its traditions and practices, and so that we will have to try things and know that they will not all succeed. But we'll be in a community of practice that holds each other accountable, around which we built a lot of trust, and we're willing to be transparent. And so I think that will lead us to success.
And I think anytime you can leverage the capabilities and the resources of all of our 2- and 4-year institutions in our region, that's pretty special.
We in higher education must take a stand and must collaborate, partner, and commit to not only closing equity gaps, but to eliminate them. And that is what we are going to do as members of the Moonshot for Equity.